My guest today in studio is from Ogilvy and Mather, the most prolific, or one of the most prolific advertising agencies in Cape Town. And the managing director of the Cape Town branch, Gavin Levinsohn, is with me today. And we're going to ask some poignant questions, I think, about the whole issue of advertising, print, television, radio, and so on. How do we figure in the creative scale compared to the rest of the world, the Americans, the Brits, the French, the Germans?
I think for a long time the headline, Tony, has been that we punch out of our weight division, and that is true still. South Africa has a great creative reputation globally. Where we're at risk is as advertising becomes more technological and digitally driven, if we don't live in a digital and technology society that keeps up with some other markets, then we will get left behind. And I think globally, when it comes to looking at digital advertising and technology-driven categories of advertising, we are at risk of falling behind. We probably are a bit behind already.
On the print side, is it dying as far as you're concerned as an advertising agency?
Yes, in terms of the paper-based delivery format, I'd say yes. What also is happening around print is because there is momentum and thought and a view that it might be dying, so clients and agencies, including our studio, they tend to put less effort into print. So it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Isn't that rather dangerous from your point of view and assumptions on your point? Because you're assuming then that it is dying. Meantime, coming into print is the digital age where everything's appearing on tablet and Android and so on.
Right.
Aren't you missing the stroke? Because it cannot exist without print and vice versa now.
So I think the distinction then you're making is between, let's say, a certain type of static format versus print as in paper. And I think tablets, newspaper moving to tablets, magazines moving to tablets, they will create opportunities. Whether those will be as static as current print, we will watch and see. We've done some experiments playing with tablet-delivered magazines and done some ads in those formats, and it's different to working in traditional print.
Yes, it is, because traditionally journalists are finding it very difficult to cross over into multimedia, as we would call it today.
Yeah, I think, and I thought we might get to this, but the challenges facing the ad industry are not dissimilar from the challenges facing the publishing industry. The need for speed, the need for iteration. I know a lot of ad agencies are trying to refashion their creative studios to feel more like newsrooms, which is quite an interesting thing in terms of pace and speed of responsiveness. Both industries are facing similar challenges and have to adapt.
Isn't one of the saddest side of things that you're not talking to each other at the moment? It seems as almost, well, we're developing our thoughts on our side of the fence, and the print media is developing their thoughts on the other side of the fence, and nobody's talking to each other.
Yeah, I think I've read a lot about what's happening in publishing in New York, how the shift around Bloomberg. There are all these very interesting dynamics, and yeah, I think the ad industry, which in itself is becoming quite a limited definition, but the advertising agency industry and the allied industries of design and marketing should be talking more closely to the media industry. I mean, they've always been linked. The traditional format of advertising was determined by the media, not the ad industry itself. And yeah, I guess we should be talking more.
On the last point of this, why do you think they've drifted apart? Because they definitely have.
I think at some point in the late 80s and then the mid-90s, the media departments and components of advertising agencies jettisoned from the ad agency. So the media department, which became media businesses, and a media planning buying industry maintained closer relationships to the media itself, whereas the creative account handling parts of ad agencies sort of drifted away from media. Digital's forcing those things back together again, which is very exciting.
So we're going to be brother and sister again?
I think so. I know in Ogilvy Cape Town we've brought media, digital media back in-house. We're experimenting with content production, video content production, and here we are, the two of us talking, so maybe this is a good start.
It's a good you know, I'm glad you said that in some sense, because you have changed an awful lot at Ogilvy. You took it from what was a dying dinosaur, and you've rejuvenated it.
Yeah, I don't think it was a dying dinosaur. I think it was, someone called it an established business. that had really excellent leadership before I got there. But along with the management team, both in Johannesburg and Cape Town, what we've done is we've heavily invested in digital. We've made that our number one conversation to have as a board, as a management team, and as a general team. And all efforts, financial and other, have gone into digitally renovating the business. Yeah.
Let's move on now to the radio side, which you know is a pet subject of mine. Radio seems to have frozen in time, going back 20 years, especially in Cape Town.
Yeah, I think to some degree. I think there's a certain temperament and acceptability to what people want. And if we look at the rapid rise of Twitter, where you get to make statements in 140 characters or less, which has become kind of a predominant news medium, Twitter, surely that sort of modality applies to radio too, which is I want more, I want it quicker, I want it in digestible chunks. Now, radio needs to play into that kind of consciousness. Now, you can't self-edit on radio as an end user, but surely then the radio stations need to be more selective, faster, and have a different tempo to what they currently have. I agree.
Got to put you on the spot on this one. You listen to radio.
Yeah.
Do you like what you listen to? Do you think it's serving a purpose for you as an advertising agency and as an individual?
As an individual, I've got like a repertoire of 2 or 3 stations that I flick between, and they serve me to some degree. I think your comments around pace and tempo are good, and they also irritate me, the radio stations, and I think your point that they can be improved and shifted, like all other media, is valid.
Don't you think that, especially and we'll pick on Cape Town here, most of the radio stations sound like each other?
Look, I think if you go to, and I'll talk about my repertoire, obviously something like Cape Talk sounds incredibly different to 5.
It's talk radio,
because you're making like a sort of a tectonic shift between those two types of station. Once you're within a genre, they're pretty similar. Yes, certain personalities, strong personalities, as they always have a listenership and can shift one's relationship to radio. But if you look at the full station and look at another full station, I think they're starting to blur.
We seem to have fallen behind. We don't seem to have kept pace. And that's not good for advertising agencies, is it?
No, I think, you want choice, you want difference, you want to be able to target audiences. I think overlapping audiences has been a problem in radio for a long time. Yes, there are exceptions. But when you've got, as with any medium, and in fact with any brand, when you've got a distinctive offering and a distinctive audience, that's exciting for media planners and buyers and ad agencies, also from a creative point of view.
What do you think the future of streaming radio is? Sure. When one looks at a licensing authority such as ICASA that has taken 12 years to grant the next lot of licenses, and I'm going to do a little preamble here, we have 80-odd radio stations in South Africa.
Right.
The United Kingdom has over 400 and America has 12,000.
Right.
So there's something quite wrong there, isn't there?
If my school Afrikaans doesn't fail me, what I want to say is dis bo my vuurmaak plek. I'm a little out of my comfort zone in answering that. I think the future of streaming radio is going to be similar to the future of other media going digital, which is focused audiences proving their case through measurement and track record.
Well, you've got streaming TV coming very shortly.
Sure.
In fact, Apple are doing it right now.
Sure. I mean, surely eventually the biggest broadcaster in the world is going to be YouTube. That's why I think as the ad industry and the media industry goes digital, the distinction that must be constantly held is film won't die, but maybe the delivery or distribution system will. Now, there's a lot of research to say TV as one medium is still thriving and growing. Traditional TV, as we know, whether it's through networks, free-to-air, national broadcasters, all those TV platforms are still growing in the face of the internet. But at some point, the distribution system must change, and surely that applies to radio.
Let's move on to TV. Is it good, bad, indifferent? How does Ogilvy Mather view it in the advertising industry?
I'm not going to talk about any one broadcaster. I'm going to say this, though, and I'm very confident and clear in saying it. It still works incredibly powerfully we still recommend it, we still deliver to it. All of Ogilvy's research from around the world, and I am open to correction, but a lot of our research says TV is still a very potent, powerful medium for delivering sales to brands. That said, one needs to be cognizant of the fact that people can now edit and curate their own content.
I have to put you on the spot here, Gavin. I can't let you off the hook here. It would be very remiss of me to do so. Let's look at the SABC. We all know the traumas and the tribulations that are going on at the SABC, but we're not going to go down that road or the political route. No, I'm not going to put you on the spot on that one. But where I am going to put you on the spot is the content of programming of the SABC is so poor. Why should any of your advertisers wish to advertise on those programs?
Well, I think one needs to be careful as to one's assessment of content. Because a lot of their programming attracts massive audiences. I'm not enough of an expert on sort of the ARs and the AMPs being achieved, the ARs being achieved by various programs, but I do know we still, and our media partners still place advertising on the SABC because it reaches an audience that pay TV and satellite TV still cannot reach.
How important is youth in the advertising market to you as opposed to the actual ad spenders?
Youth as in the audience?
Yes.
I think it's crucial. I mean, several times over the past few years, I've looked at an age distribution graph of South Africa. And our graph, if you compare to other markets, is upside down. If you look at the volume of people the volume of our population that can be considered youth, it's significantly more than in other markets. So one might argue that the youth audience is the audience.
But does it have the ad spend?
Does it have the spend to purchase brands? I think for certain categories and products, yes. Obviously, we've got a large population that's impoverished, which is obviously a bigger issue and a bigger question. But a lot of brands today are targeting the youth.
What do you see as the road ahead for Ogilvy and Mather in the advertising industry?
I think as a meta issue or a headline issue, how science and data coexists with creativity and intuition. That's a path that the industry is walking. Speed, fast is the new good, we like to say at Ogilvy, and I think that applies to the media industry as well. How quickly can you be good? Does a good pizza take longer to make? I'm not sure anymore. So speed is an issue. Iteration. In the old days, we'd sit and ruminate and stare into the sky and think deeply and then sort of whip a rabbit out of the hat. And in this moment of supposed genius or creativity, that way of working is dying. We need to build things quicker. There's a lot of concepts in the technology software industry which are impacting the creative industry. Hacking. Can you quickly prototype ideas and concepts and make them live and then shift them while they're live? Now that's true for publishing too.
Trying to avoid the last word on my behalf is the one word that we have to have is communication between all of us.
Yes, the digital is forcing and transforming these industries and collapsing them into each other. There's a term called native advertising where online publishers are creating unique opportunities for advertisers. So at that point, the publisher becomes, well, to some degree, the ad agency. So, and ad agencies are trying to create longer form content and so forth. So all these industries are collapsing, which to your point means they need to talk more often and be more intimate once again.
Last word from Gavin Levinsohn. What lies in the future for you? Movement?
I think continuing to make Ogilvy a future-fit agency. We've started a journey and we want to keep going on it. But future-fitting Ogilvy Mather Cape Town.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.